Would you fight for your country? What if you didn't believe in the war? Today, we are going to be taking a look at young men who have fled Russia and their reasons for doing so. I'm Paul, a U.S. Army combat veteran, and let's get into it.
And start mobilization, and it's just insane. Like all my friends in danger, so I immediately decided to come back in Turkey, and it's crazy. I am just for freedom, Russia from Putin, for democracy, Russia. It's crazy, and it's crazy. So many people start to hating Russian people. It's
How old are you?
27.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that, man, you feel for the guy. It's got to feel like a tectonic change in your country to suddenly be called up and forced to fight for it, especially when you know that the government doesn't represent you or what you want, and that you have no voice in its decisions, right? And the people around you have no voice in its decisions. It's also got to be even tougher when you realize that ultimately there is no major strategic threat in Ukraine, despite robust Russian propaganda. If you are someone who speaks fluent English, right, you probably have access to English language news sources, European language news sources. And when you read those, you realize just how different it is how different the reality is relative to what lines you're fed by the government. And I'm not going to sit here and act like, as a U.S. soldier, that the U.S. wasn't also prone to these things, right? If you remember, in 2004, the U.S. concocted an elaborate lie about, or the U.S. government rather, concocted an elaborate lie about the threat that Saddam Hussein posed, that he was developing weapons that were going to be used to create another 9/11. It was entirely a fiction, entirely made up to justify the administration's decision to invade Iraq. But there are some key differences, right? Instead, the U.S. never fully mobilized, right? While it was short on troops, it never resorted to this. Instead, what it did was oftentimes preventing troops from leaving the service, sort of, instead of having troops flow out at the end of their term of service, they would extend that and continually bring troops in. That was how they chose to solve that manpower difficulty. But it is still extremely hard to get troops to fight. Most people have the common sense to know the difference between a country going on a war of choice and a war of existential survival. This is why Ukraine doesn't have necessarily a manpower shortage, though it has its own issues with training and equipping. But it makes you feel bad for the people. Ultimately, again, the Russian people themselves aren't they are another type of victim in this conflict.
When Putin has his speech, I just pack my bag and directly go to Finland. In Russia, we don't have flight tickets right now, so I have Schengen visa, and I found some cheap flight from Helsinki to Istanbul. So yeah, that was my plan, and I made it really fast.
So this is also sort of interesting, right? He discussed that he is trying to get to Istanbul. I think there's maybe a belief that by getting into a NATO country, he will not be returned to Russia. That's my theory. But he said he has a Schengen zone visa. And I don't know if Turkey is in the Schengen zone. I think that's primarily Western European countries, but I could be wrong on that. But what is interesting is that, we oftentimes, when we retell sort of stories or historic stories of survival, I think of particularly like the Battle of Stalingrad, right, where we extol the virtues of the people that stayed and fought and did their duty. And obviously there's what's called survivorship bias. You always hear the stories of the people that survived those battles. But the reality when you look at things is that the number one thing that survivors do is they read the tea leaves faster than everyone else. That's the key, right? You have to know when things are going badly before everyone else does, because then you can beat feet and get out of Dodge. And the truth is that if you were going to survive a catastrophic battle, again, like Stalingrad, most of those survivors were people, frankly, that were finagled, did a deal, called in a favor, got reassigned out of that army as fast as possible. In some cases, even, let's see if I can think of the non-demonetized word for this, gave themselves a medical reason to be evacuated to the rear, right? But the point is that the guy who heard the speech and said, I know this game, right? And Russia's goal with its confusing rules about partial mobilization, its claim that it's only going to be for combat veterans or only for reservists, right? These are individuals who the reason they were able to get across the border is because they knew right away that this was just a game that Putin was playing, that in fact there weren't any more reserves to call up, that what he was really doing was eliciting a draft of healthy military age men. And unfortunately, it's got to be really, really sort of terrifying to not have a job, not have a plan, not have any of your things, but to have to get on a plane and get out of there, especially knowing that your family may be punished for your decision.
I definitely don't want to be like drafted or this kind of thing. That's for sure. But of course, I also have all my family and lots of friends in Russia, and I'm certain that they cannot leave. Like all of them cannot leave at once. So that's a problem. Because that's why, of course, I will plan to return some way. Maybe, I don't know. it's super unclear at this point because there's a lot of uncertainty. But I'm not. I'm of course I don't want to just like cut all the connections because I have a lot of friends and family there. So yeah, it's a bit of a hard time.
Yeah, it is super hard, right? As discussed, you have your friends, you have your family. You notice he walked a fine line, stating that he didn't want to be drafted, but not necessarily making a political statement about the larger situation. And that's probably perhaps a calculation to protect his friends and family who are still in Russia, right? He's on camera. It shouldn't be terribly hard for the Russian state, if it so chose, though I think the Russian state has bigger fish to fry, to identify him and identify his members of his family. But it's important to note that in asylum, right, there are obviously every country has different laws, but generally, at least according to the Treaty on Asylum and Refugees, you have to have some sort of protected class. So if you're a member of an ethnic minority who faces persecution, if you are subject to gender-based violence or discrimination, but crucially, if you are a political dissident, you may qualify for asylum, again, depending on the specific rules of a specific country. And that can be sort of a workaround, right, in events like a draft. I would be really curious if someone were to argue in a court to say, hey, this draft is, it's gender discrimination because as a man, I am targeted for this thing. It's unethical because I obviously can't consent to be drafted, but also because I will be perhaps forced to commit war crimes or become complicit in war crimes. And if there's a defense there, or if there's just a defense to say, hey, me leaving my country is actually a form of protest, in addition to me trying to protect myself against what I feel is an illegal war. Obviously, I am facing persecution by the state for this belief, but ultimately, ultimately, like the incentive is always going to be to protect yourself, get out while the getting is good, as they say, because there are rumors even now that Putin, Russia has added military checkpoints at the borders, is attempting to roll out a version of martial law to stop people from leaving Russia. Not totally unlike what Ukraine did early in the war. Again, the key difference being that Ukraine was defending its very existence as a country, and Russia has just sort of launched this war of choice. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you want to see more videos like this, do let me know in the comments. And of course, if you want to see some of the intense combat video breakdowns, the kind that YouTube has really cracked down on and started censoring, you guys want to become members of the Patreon. That's where all those videos are going live now, and the link is in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one.